You installed the GitLab Agent. Cool. Now let's teach it not to be a dumbass. We're going to make the agent deploy something useful today. Cert-manager. And no, we're not setting it to auto-trigger or for deployment on push or merge. We're giving it a single job. Don't move unless I click a button. Why? Because this is not some flaky side project. We're building a production-ready, reproducible infrastructure. And cert-manager, it is just the first piece of the puzzle. I'm Garrett, and this is TimberTech. This video is all about deploying cert-manager, automated but manual. We're going to write a GitLab pipeline that only runs when we trigger it from the web UI. This is not a bug, this is the whole point. We're using helmfile to manage the deployment, and we're executing it through the GitLab Kubernetes Agent. Now, if you watched the previous video, you already saw us connect the GitLab Agent to our cluster. Now we're putting it to work in a way that avoids accidental redeployments or dependency failure. Let's look at the repository we created in our previous video when we were setting up the GitLab Kubernetes Agent. So now we have in this repository, we have a deployment for cert-manager. And we have a GitLab pipeline configuration for our deployment. This is how we build infrastructure that recovers cleanly. Single job, single purpose, no accidental chaos. In a later video, we'll expand this to upload our internal certificate authority we created and our certificates. But that only works if cert-manager is already deployed and its CRDs are registered in the cluster. So this isn't a placeholder, it is a foundation. We're not here to walk through installing the GitLab agent again. That was the last video. Right now, I'm assuming your cluster already has the GitLab agent connected and online. You can check that quickly in the GitLab UI. And you can find it under Operate Kubernetes Clusters. And if it says connected, you're good. And if it's not connected, pause this video and go fix it. Please go watch the previous video. This pipeline we're gonna run runs entirely through this agent. No kubeconfig hacks, no remote CI runners poking your cluster. It all goes through the agent. Now, once the agent's online, GitLab can safely and directly apply resources into your cluster. Let's make it do exactly that, but only when we tell it to. We're using helmfile for our deployment. Don't worry if you have never used it before. It is just a way of managing Helm charge declaratively. Let's run through it. So this is the Helm file. This is the file that's being called by our GitLab pipeline. It consists of a few options. Don't worry, it's quite logical. So it has a repository, and here is where it can find the Helm chart of cert-manager. And then you have to define the release that you want to deploy. So we're going to deploy our release cert-manager. We're going to deploy it in a namespace, create a namespace if it doesn't exist. We got the chart with the version, and for the options, we're referencing values.yaml. Now, let's look at that one. So these are the values that we're going to give cert-manager. We're going to tell it to deploy the CRDs, the custom resource definitions. We're going to disable Prometheus, and we're setting the webhook timeout to 10 seconds. Finally, we have our pipeline. So this is the pipeline configuration. It's pretty cool. So first, we are going to give our pipeline an input. And this will show up in our GitLab UI as a way to control if we want to deploy cert-manager or not. Basically, add this job to the pipeline. Then what we have is the kube context. Now, as you can see, this is actually the repository where in the previous video, we installed our GitLab Kubernetes agent configuration. And this is colon k3s. That is the name of our agent. Now, the use context, that's just a reusable script that we're using for future pipeline jobs. Basically, it tells kubectl get the context. We're setting it to use our GitLab agent so that it can deploy through it. And finally, we have our cert-managed deployment job. Now, it's very simple. It uses the context, so it switches to the GitLab agent we configured. I put two things in. We're manually creating the namespace for cert-manager. I'm also creating the namespace for traffic. And then we call the GitLab helm file so that it can be used by the GitLab Kubernetes Agent, where we simply say deploy our helm file we just configured. And of course, we want to suppress any kind of secret in our GitLab logging. The final secret is in our rules section. So what are we doing here? Basically, we're telling with the final option here, when never, to never add this job to our pipeline, only if one of the previous statements is true. And in this case, what we're doing, we're checking if the variable of the input we created, the cert-manager variable here, if that is true and that our source is the web UI. And that's it. This allows us to deploy cert-manager manually from our GitLab UI. And the best part is that we can also use the same web UI trigger for any future jobs, and the input will control if we are deploying cert-manager. Let's continue. So why all this effort for deploying cert-manager? Well, here's the case. I want to set up my cluster with an internal and external load balancer, meaning that anything I host on the internet will be using Let's Encrypt. For that, I need to use cert-manager. But also, I want to host tools, dashboards, etc. that I do not want to expose to the internet. And those I want to run over a secondary internal load balancer, just within my own network. For that, we need to load our own certificates. And in order to load those certificates, certain things needs to be in place in our cluster. And those are the custom resource definitions that come with cert-manager. So basically, cert-manager is like the first domino. It needs to be there in order to install the rest. By doing this manually, while having it automated, we can quickly redeploy cert-manager. Then we can redeploy our certificates, and then we can kick off the repair and the entire deployment of any tool we have configured. Let's deploy cert-manager. So because of our configuration, deploying cert-manager should now be very easy. So hop over to your deployment configuration repository and let's deploy cert-manager. So you can do that by going to build pipelines. We're going to say new pipeline, and here is our input. We're setting it to true because we want to deploy cert-manager and new pipeline. And as you can see, everything worked. It added cert-manager to our pipeline. It's going to configure everything and it's going to send our deployment through our GitLab agent to our cluster. So this only should take a few moments. And as you can see, it is now in the process of deploying. So let's jump to our cluster and there it is. It is already deployed. So what do we have here? Cert-manager, the webhook, the CA injector, it's all there. So what did we actually achieve here? We deployed cert-manager in a clean, isolated job that only runs when we trigger it. It's manual on purpose while automated. And it's the first domino in the cluster TLS lifecycle. Every certificate, every secure ingress, every sealed secret, we can't do any of it unless cert-manager is up first. And more importantly, we now have a pipeline that gives us confidence and control. Not just for bootstrapping, but also for rebuilds, restores, and disaster recovery. The job is safe, fully intentional, that simple to rerun when needed. And that's how you build clusters that last. Not with copy paste, but with trusted automation, one layer at a time. In the next video, we will take this one step further. Now that cert-manager is in place, we will upload our generated internal root and intermediate certificates with Ansible that we created in an earlier video. We will load them into Kubernetes as secrets, configure our own cluster issuer, and finally start issuing internal certificates the right way. This is how you get full control of your infrastructure identity layer, from root CA to signed service certificates. If that sounds like something you want in your cluster, comment below, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am Garrett, and this is TheFatRat.